as Teresa said, I'm super passionate about diversity and equity and inclusion, and I'm just happy to be here to share this with you guys and kind of try to give you a little more tangible idea of what these all mean, because I call them big words that sometimes we think we know and we have an understanding of, but maybe we just need to dive in a little more. So that's what we'll do today. And so kind of our agenda for today, we're going to talk about, like I said, the definitions. We're going to look at the current state of diversity in tech, how we got to this point, and why it is such a big deal that we do something about it. Like Teresa said, I've been a QA for about 8 years now. I've done automation, manual, and just about anything in between that you can think of. I've been blessed with several opportunities to be able to write articles and to give talks about this and about other things as well that I'm super passionate about, mostly around soft skills and IT, because we're starting to get to a point where we have to be able to talk to people. And that's why this talk is also kind of big for me, because it's again, goes along that lines of being able to interact with the people around us. And I'll have my contact information at the end. If you guys ever want to email or tweet me, feel free. A little background on this talk. Like Teresa said, I was with the DEI at ClearCover, and this was actually a roundtable discussion that I led for the company. It was like, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that long. We had lots of little areas where we would stop for discussion. So please feel free to stop me at any point, ask a question. There will be a couple times where I ask for maybe your input. If you're comfortable with sharing something, please feel free. If you're not, that's okay too. I don't want anyone to feel pressured into sharing something that you're not comfortable sharing. I also want you guys to know that I only speak from my experiences. I make no claims to understand anyone else's experience. I welcome any discussions that we do have, because that brings a diversity of thought and it brings something new for me to think about as well, so that we can all kind of work together to be better. There are a couple things I'm just going to ask. So it's what I ask of everyone when I do this. Just be present and know that there might be some things that make you feel a little uncomfortable, because this is kind of one of those things that we can get deep into. But know that that's okay, because when we become uncomfortable, that shows us that we're getting that point where we can change things and we can push ourselves outside our boundaries. I'd like to say that this is a safe place to share your experiences. Again, if you're comfortable with it. So feel free to stop me or speak up when I open up the floor. So let's start with definitions. These are the 3 words that I tend to use, and I've noticed that some companies are using for their diversity as well. Inclusion, and these are ones I looked up off of the dictionary and everything, so super bland, artificial, just there. Inclusion is the action or state of including or of being included within a group or a structure. Okay. Diversity, the state of being diverse. Variety, a range of different things. And equity, the quality of being fair and impartial. Okay, so that's great. That's like a dictionary definition, but what do these actually mean? Well, what is inclusion? We know it is to be part of a group. So think about when you were in school. There were always cliques. There's cliques now, right? We know these cliques. In school, they were the jocks, the preps, the nerds, the dweebs, the dorks, borrowing a couple from Ferris Bueller, of course. But there are these groups of people that have similar likes and dislikes. And in some way or another, we wanted to be a part of the group. I wanted to be part of several groups. I was a volleyball player. I was in band. I was in choir in college. It's being part of something. And that's what inclusion is. It's being a part of the group, being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And most of all, just not being alone. We are social creatures. So we want to be a part of something that makes us feel good and be with a group of people that understand us. So what's diversity? Diversity is when you can bring different people together and bring those different views, right? Having everybody have just one understanding and one idea of something doesn't do anything for innovation, doesn't make anybody any better. But being able to have someone and having those constructive conversations that bring a new mindset, that maybe you've thought this one certain way about something for a really long time, maybe the way that you test something, and somebody else is like, hey, have you looked at it from this angle? Have you looked at it this way? Have you tried this? It opens up conversations and it brings that diversity of thought that actually make us better at what we do. The more diverse that we can be, the better innovation and the better we can be at our jobs. And equity. I tend to use the word equity instead of equality because equity is a bigger, more reaching, better way to stand. And I'll kind of get into kind of what it is, right? Equity, to be fair and impartial. Finding a definition for this word is really, really hard because when you just type in equity to Google, you get like home equity. You don't get the meaning of equity. So through a detailed search, I was able to find a definition that I thought was really, really great. And it's from the World Health Organization. And they define equity as the absence of avoidable or remediable differences among groups of people, whether the groups are defined socially, economically, demographically, or geographically. Social equity is concerned with the justice and fairness of social policy. Like the meme that has the 3 children trying to watch the baseball game, right? There's 3 children of varying heights. There's a fence in front of them. The tallest one can see over, none of the others can. Equality is giving 1 box to the medium-sized child and 2 boxes to the smallest child so they can all see. Equity is ripping the fence down and letting them all be who they are and being able to see the baseball game, right? So that's why equity is just a little bit higher on the scale, because it's not just giving everyone a playing ground, it's just removing those things that are avoidable, taking those differences and just completely moving them out of the way and giving everybody the ability to do this. So now we're going to get into the current state of diversity in tech. And a lot of the statistics, unless I note otherwise on the slides, and I can always give the slides out if anyone would like them. The following stats are from a 2019 report by Skill Crush on the state of diversity in tech. I'll call out a couple of places where I use other references. So where this all kind of stem from and why I think this is diversity, equity, and inclusion is such a big deal is because it's so prevalent in our popular culture and in comedy. And kind of the backstory to this meme and into what I'm going to talk about on this slide is, as a stress relief, not only do I ride my bike there, I also paint by number. It's really kind of one of those, I don't have to use a lot of brain power. I can really just kind of focus on putting color on a brush and coloring in certain places. Well, while I do that, I was listening to Parks and Rec playing on Netflix on my TV. I'm just kind of doodling along and my ears perk up when I hear Leslie talk about the boys club. And so I was like, what is she talking about? And what she's talking about is there's this like 1-minute clip in one of the episodes where she's talking to April about how there's a group of guys that are standing outside in the courtyard, they're drinking beers, they're talking to each other, and she's like, yeah, that's the boys club. We need to go infiltrate and break the ceiling, and they're talking about how to divvy up the empire. And when they cut over to the gentleman, they're talking about like the guy's wife got him a shirt and she thought it was slimming, and the other guy looks at him and goes, yeah, it is, right? Like they weren't really talking about divvying the empire, but it just the fact that it has become a joke and it's become prevalent is one of those where you see that it exists out there because comedy is mostly based around real life, right? Like that's the things that's out there. So we know that it's something that we should look at is important in our jobs and everything. So between January 2016 and June of 2018, over 52,000 workers in the tech industry took PayScale's online salary survey. And that table down there is the results that they got. And they looked at the controlled and uncontrolled wage gaps. The uncontrolled racial wage gap is simply comparing the median total cash compensation for each group. Doesn't take into account education, experience, time in service, none of that. It just flat, here's the numbers. The controlled wage gap compares the salary for similarly qualified workers of different races. So that's the one that's going to look at how much education, how much experience, job title, all of that to kind of give that even base. One of the interesting things that I found also in that survey was the fact that on average, women tend to make $16,000 less than men. It's been this way for a long time. And it's one of those things that the more we can bring it to attention, the more that maybe we can do something to decrease that gap. That's not the only gap. We do have to look at these other gaps, these racial and ethnic gaps. So looking at the uncontrolled pay gap, we see that we figure just kind of the assumption that we make is that Caucasian comes in at $1 straight across the board. Our Asian friends are making $1.23 and everyone else is making less than $1. And that's, and we see it varies from what, 98 cents on the high side to 87 cents on the low side. But when we look at the controlled pay gap, it becomes a little bit closer. Everybody comes a little bit closer to that dollar, but it's still, we still have three groups there that are below the $1 range. And it's not right. And that's another thing that it's just kind of a tangible thing to hold on to, that something that we should work for and that we should rally for. These next ones are interesting in little statistics as well. The positions in tech that are entry-level jobs that are held by women in general is 39%. Just 39. It doesn't seem like that low of a number, but it is when you consider that the majority of entry-level jobs out there are male-dominated. And according to AmericanProgress.org, this is a fact sheet about women's in leadership positions. Managers in information technology, 9% of those are female, only 9. And I'm not condoning or saying this is good or anything. I'm honestly just giving you numbers so that you have something to kind of grasp onto, because sometimes we say that we need to be more diverse, we need to be more equitable, we need to have more inclusion without actually, knowing what the state looks like. Of senior managers in Silicon Valley startups, 14% of them are women. Again, it's from the fact sheet of women in leadership, and I just snorted and I realized that was hilarious for me. So now that I put that out there, wrap it back up. So 14%, it's a little bit higher than the number of just straight female or not straight in that sense, but just the number of female in entry-level tech jobs, but only 14%. It's still kind of a low number when we're looking at it. This next one blew my socks off when I found it. 2/3 of Fortune 500 boards have no female or person of color representation at all, which means that boards are making decisions for the companies that they're over without having the representation of everyone who works for them. 2/3 though. I didn't think it was such a huge gap, but just seeing that number, I was like, holy moly, this is insane. Why is this number so low? And we'll kind of get into the why going in a little bit here. And now what I want to get into is more of a women of color and people of color statistics here. This shows 11.9% of management positions are held by women of color. Still a low number. We're still, 19% of Silicon Valley senior managers. It's still such a low number. And 12% of tech and computer science positions are held by Black or Latinx women. Again, a low number. It's not, these aren't there's things that we can do, and there's things that we should do. And that we'll cover kind of too. Now, how does the US compare to the rest of the world? Mostly to Europe is where I got these. This is from Forbes.com, and it showed that 18% of computer and information science bachelor's degrees in the US were women. Only 18%. Where when we look at Europe, we have 49% of tertiary students in university and such are in science, math, computer, engineering, manufacturing, among the big 17 European countries in 2012. 49%, almost half, are women in Europe compared to we're only putting out 18%. In the US, women in these high-tech positions ranged from 9% in electrical engineering to a high of 26 in computer and information systems. So that seems, I like how they use a high of, because like 26% isn't very high. But if we look at those European countries again, the women's share of high-tech knowledge-intensive positions between 2008 and 2010 was more than 25% in all of those same countries. So their low was 25% and our high is 26%. That kind of shows the difference there. And the Netherlands, they call it the Netherlands as an example. They're a completely different animal. They do maternity and paternity leave completely differently. They do diversity and equity and inclusion. They're almost the gold standard where everyone should try to be. We could learn a lot from just kind of studying the people of the Netherlands. And this chart here shows us the how big tech companies compare. I know that there was an article that just came out about Apple and what they're doing to kind of ramp up their diversity. I wasn't able to read it before I looked at this again, but I know that they are trying to, especially with the events that took place in the last year. They're trying to. And if we look at these numbers, we can see that they didn't make many improvements between 2014 and 2018. And this comes from the Wired.com. And it was, they had, all of these big companies had made these promises to be better at diversity. And really what we see is the only numbers that really change, that really show us any difference, are between the Caucasian and the Asian. The rest of the numbers don't move too far at all. So the fact that Apple is doing something to kind of increase their diversity is great to hear. And I'd be very, very interested to see where they end up on a chart like this in the future, to see if they're really following through with what they're saying. So I'm going to kind of open it up if anybody wants to say anything. We'll keep this really high level. Does anyone have any examples of diversity in tech? Maybe a lack of diversity, or maybe where you work is really good, and so that maybe we can share and take that to the places where we work. Feel free.
I know for me personally, you know, on the positions I've had, a lot of them started off where maybe I was the only woman on the team. Definitely in a lot of instances, the only Black woman, maybe in the whole engineering space. And over time, the longer I've been with companies, it seems like it's gotten better. But still, it's something that is not, I guess, well balanced until that progression kind of happens. I know too, I've noticed when I look at different websites and companies that, you know, maybe I would be interested in knowing more about, looking at their careers page and things like that, I noticed the lack of diversity. And that's something that jumps out to me, because that means to me, if I were to work there, would I be the first of my kind, I guess? You know, would I be that first person that triggers the change, which obviously there is a change needed, but you know, with that comes that I guess burden in some sense of trying to be that first and being the reference point for everyone when trying to add more people of diversity to the group. So I guess that's my my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and thank you. And that is a heavy burden to bear. It's not like you're walking in and because now that everybody's looking at you like, oh, so how do we do this better? And just like, I don't know. I'm just trying to do my job, right? Like, just do better. If if it was as easy as that, we wouldn't have talks like this. We wouldn't be discussing it, right?
Right.
I know that our company is doing a great job at the diversity and the inclusion that we have at Rocket Homes has been incredible to see. You don't ever feel like there's not a diversity of thought and a diversity of people. It's probably one of the only places I've worked where I've seen what a big deal that it is, and not even just like in words. It's a big deal because in words it's a big deal to everybody, right? It's in action, and in action they're doing a magnificently awesome job, and I'm just absolutely pleased to be there. It's great to be in a place like that. A little bit of brag there, but I know what it's like to be in. I'm a female. I walk into what I know is a male-dominated field and have to, make a name for myself and kind of elbow my way in sometimes. Instead of having to elbow my way in, if somebody could just scoot over a little and let me pull a chair up, that would be awesome. And so that's what I ask of everybody here. Move your chair over. Let somebody come to the table too. If you notice something, see something, say something, move over a little, bring somebody else to the table. So thank you for sharing, Teresa. So what I want to talk about now is, how did we get into this state? How do we get to this place in technology that's just not as diverse as it could and it should be? Is it because of schooling? We saw that there in that one statistic that there are women that go to school for computer science and programming, but we're just not putting out a lot. Are we just not encouraging them to go into schooling? Are our children not being pushed to do that? Girls and children of color as well. It's kind of these. I actually have a story I wanted to relate to you guys. It happened last week. I received an email from my daughter's school, and it goes with this. So please just kind of bear with me. I received an email from my daughter's school, and they have what's called innovation teams, basically little clubs where they get together and they do little things together, right? Sometimes it's a party plan, sometimes it's for the yearbook. This particular one that was being shown was Boys Who Code, to build brothership and learn how to code and everything else. And at first I was just gonna sit on it and I was gonna let it go. Because my daughter, for anyone who has met her, you guys haven't, but she's an incredible little human person. She is so wise beyond her years. Like sometimes I don't even know how I ended up with her. She takes it upon herself. She does remote schooling because I would prefer that my kids don't attend in person right now. She created her own little online club for the remote kids to be able to do coding, because she was able to do it in person last year. So she wanted to continue that, working with the teacher and working with the remote principal. She was able to get that started, and that's what she's doing. So I realized that seeing this Boys Who Code club irritated me in a way that I couldn't actually let go. I ended up writing an email to the principal that was a good page and a half, 2 pages long, about the fact that I give talks on this. I'm very passionate about this. My daughter is into coding and wants to be a coder when she grows up. She likes to help me test. And that she had started this little group, and the fact that they weren't being inclusive and they weren't letting, not only just like having a mixed gender, but they were, by having these singleized genders, they were also leaving out children who may feel that they're non-binary or non-conforming. So the principal got back to me and said that she did agree with what I had said. Told me that they weren't having the groups right now because of social distancing and everything, and told me that there were 4 different groups that were like this. There was one for boys who code, one for girls who code, one for I think they call it League of Gentlemen or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, something kind of like the movie, and then Glam Squad. And these are all like pointed towards boys and girls. And the fact that I brought it up, they realized that that could leave out a certain amount of children who maybe would be interested. Maybe there are boys who are interested in makeup and fashion and stuff like that. Maybe there are girls who would be interested in learning more about manners. Maybe boys and girls want to code, right? Not only is this a group that should be open to different age levels, because they are kindergarten through 5th grade, but they should be open to everyone. So they've asked me to work with them going forward to be kind of their community parent liaison as they look into these groups going into the next school year. I bring this up because this is all, I mean, we're talking about all of this, and sometimes we just kind of sit on these things and we don't say anything. If I hadn't have spoken up, this would continue and somebody would eventually be left out and would cause potential like personal harm to someone and feeling left out. And back to inclusion, we all want to be part of something. If you can, and if you have the opportunity to, speak up. Even speaking up small will help to bring along the change that we're looking for when we're doing this. So, all of that being said, let's go back into how we got here. Some of the reasons I found, and this is from nextgeneration.ie, it was a blog post, why there isn't more diversity in tech is because of gender stereotypes. Boys are better at science and math. I heard that when I was growing up, and I still pushed myself to be good in science and math, right? There's girls are better at cooking and taking care of finances. I'm terrible at finances, like just awful. So stereotypes, big, broad, general strokes, right? They're not always true. There's a lack of a talent pool. There are less women studying STEM. Therefore, there's less women applying. Therefore, there's less women to take the jobs. And again, it's because they don't feel like they've been pushed into, given the opportunity to do the schooling that they feel that they could and to get the experience in order to take the jobs. And then there's something that I thought was interesting, is in-group favoritism. It's when you have a group of, I call out in this specific one, a group of male friends that will tend to hire other male friends that they know with similar interests, not doing it maliciously, but just because that's your tight circle. That's your circle of friends. That's the people you know. They're less likely to speak out against you. The problem is when you have a group of people that all have kind of like the same mindset, you also have less diversity of thought. So they're not going to be able to stand up. So they're going to be able to be innovative to a point. And this goes for women too. It goes for everyone. I just happen to call it out this way. But if you have this tight group of people and they don't speak out against each other, they'll never get better either. So it's just, these are kind of like the different ways that we got to the point where we are. Some of the interesting things that I found here, it's more of this is less about gender and more about kind of the racial and ethnic gaps in STEM. These are different questions that were asked, and then based on race, like what the answer was and how they felt this question related. Like less likely to have access to quality education to prepare them for these fields. We can see the Greens are in the 50%. They feel like they have a decent choice. But we see as we go into our Hispanic and our Black friends, they have less, they do feel that they're less likely. And it kind of stays pretty wide on, discrimination in recruitment, not encouraged to pursue these subjects from an early age. less likely to think that they would succeed. And it's, less likely to think that they would succeed. It comes all the way back to not being encouraged, right? If you're not encouraged or you're told that someone is better than you at this, you'll feel that you don't think you could succeed if you were given the chance. So it starts to come together when they're just towards the bottom, when it just is just less interested in STEM. But again, you can contribute that back up a little higher to less likely to have access to the schooling, less likely to think that they would succeed because they're not being pushed into these things. So we also have to kind of take our preconceived notions and the way that we think about things, and we have to open it up and go, how do I get other people just as involved, just of different races, of different genders? How do I get more people involved so they don't feel like they couldn't be successful? Because the technology, everyone uses technology, and we're getting to an age where everything we do is based around technology. Why can't the technology companies, the people that create the technology, look as diverse as the people who use the technology? So I thought this was terribly interesting as well. This one comes from, again, Next Generation, and this one is about why aren't there more women in tech? And there was a survey done by The Guardian that showed that 73% of people think that the tech industry is sexist. You heard me earlier say, I'll call myself on it, I came into what I see as a fairly male-dominated field, right? I have felt that way. Like I said, the company I work for now, Rocket Homes, I don't feel that way in that company. I feel that everybody's given a fair shot, but I understand where people come from on that. In the same survey, 52% of people say they're aware of women being paid less than men for doing the same job. Earlier in the talk, we saw that women on average are paid $16,000 less than men. Like, we know this, we hear about this all the time. It's in the news, it's prevalent everywhere. It's like the gender wage gap, the women make less than men. We hear it all the time. So yes, seeing that 52% of people knowing that, I can totally agree. And then this one was terribly interesting, and I'll get kind of into the reasons why. Women are 45% more likely to leave within a year than men are in these technology fields. And possible reasons for this are, well, this is, again, broad generalization, but we've heard programmers, right? We've heard of that, and we hear of male-dominated gaming. The gaming industry is, from what I hear, just like this. It's this hostile macho culture where women don't feel welcome, right? Or isolation. When you're the only in a room, like Teresa was speaking about being the first or the only, the worst thing internally is to be the only one. I'm the only pregnant woman in the room. No one else can relate. I'm the only person that does this. No one else can relate. You feel like you're outside of the group. You're not being included, part of the group. And the other one that I thought that is something that we could do better at, even in our personal jobs. We don't have to have executive leadership for any of this, for this part here. Lack of effective sponsors. Lack of having someone that has your back, that can champion for you in what you're doing. Not having that there, coming from places where I didn't have an effective sponsor, and I don't work there anymore, as you can tell, right? Well, hello, can you shush? I don't have that here now. I feel like the people that I work with, my leaders, are very much into supporting me and helping me to get where I go, where I'm wanting to be. But we can do that for others. An intern, help them. Somebody that's kind of struggling with what they're doing, or if as testers, we have the opportunity to open the door and speak with our developers. Ask them to show you what's going on. Ask them, open that door so that when something does come up, you can speak and be a sponsor and a champion for this other person. So these are like the little things that we can do. We don't have to have upper level management push us on these. So now we're going to get into the why. Why is this so important? Well, a diverse and inclusive workforce helps us avoid those turnovers. When people feel like they're included and they feel like their voice is heard and that their opinion matters, they're less likely to leave. Richard Branson is one of those that the employee comes first, right? Make the employees happy. They'll make your clients and your customers and the people that they're asking for services from you happy, which means the happier they are, the less likely they are to leave. Diversity fosters a more creative and innovative workplace, right? If you have more diversity of thought and you have more people that have more ideas and didn't all come from the same place, they're going to be more creative, they're going to be more innovative, they're going to come up with more ideas. And whether those ideas come to fruition or not, it's at least something to start. Oh, let's think about it this way. Let's do this other thing this other way. Diversity in the workplace is absolutely necessary to create that competitive economy in a globalized world. Again, it goes back to that whole, like, if your board and if your leadership and your staff can all look just as diverse as the world is that you're offering a service to, you're going to be able to be more competitive because more people are going to go, oh, hey, they really understand me on this application. They really understand what I'm looking for, because the fact that your company reflects what the world looks like. And diversity in the boardroom is absolutely needed to get to a company's full potential. Again, if your board looks like the world out there that you're offering to, you're going to have a better step up on others. More than that, 2/3 majority of no people of color or women in the boardroom. Having that diversity brings the thought and brings the ability to be better as a business.
I was gonna say too, as a prime example, I know we've all seen commercials that companies have put out or products that they've put out where the minute it comes out, somebody says, you know that's offensive, right? And the company is like, oh, and they had to pull it off the market really quick.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how did this get out? Like,
right.
It's one of those things that literally they didn't have any diversity to say, hey, this commercial and how you set this up is very offensive. This is why. Right. But if you have all of these people who are the same category of people, they won't think outside that box and say, oh yeah, I can see how this is hurtful to another group of people. And right. So companies lose money in that instance. People will, basically have that cancel culture now where, oh, well, you made this commercial and now we don't want to buy that product anymore. Twitter, everybody don't buy this product anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like a prime example of how the dollars get taken away from a company for doing something that is a goof per se, but that sticks with people's minds and affects them deeper than just it being a goof.
Yeah, exactly. And it being a goof just means that they didn't have the diversity of thought in the room when they did this thing, right? They thought they were okay, but somebody internally wasn't there to say, hey, no, this is not okay. They had to wait until it came out. Thank you for that, because that kind of leads into like all these other importance. I won't read through all of them because they're right here for you, but a lot of the things, again, the reduced turnover costs. You actually have better welfare and efficiency in your workers and your team members if they're just more diverse, right? They have an understanding that everybody is different and it's okay to be different, right? When you start to harness that culture, make that part of your culture, people feel that, and they'll feel better about their job. They'll work better. To Teresa's point, improved accessibility to new and diverse customer markets. When you have that diversity, you don't have the oops, the gotchas, because you have that whole group to be able to look at it and go, like just having someone go, do you think that this could be offensive to someone, right? Just having someone there to just bounce that off of. But, you know, among other things that diversity brings is a better reputation, because you don't have the gotchas. You don't have the cancel culture. So, you know, you don't have to worry about the entirety of the Twitter sphere rallying against you and making everybody just stop wanting to buy your product, right? In the society, like I said, we're in a tech-filled society. We're in a tech-led society. And now up or down moments happen in seconds on Twitter and social media. If you have more diversity, you'll be less likely to have these gotcha moments and have that, you know, more effective risk management. You won't have to run into the legal risks due to non-compliance of diversity laws and everything. And you don't have the marginalization of groups and of people. If everyone's there, then everyone's there. Nobody feels like they're just one off. So I thought this was kind of neat. Why tech needs women? Because gender diversity benefits companies. Just one line right there, right? And it shows that, especially in companies that are startups or just getting funding and everything, businesses with a woman on the executive team are more likely to have higher valuations at first and last funding. I mean, look at those numbers. They have women on executive teams have that first funding at 64%. That's incredible. And we know that those fundings are essential to help startup businesses get to the point where they want to be, to where they can get out of that startup feel and they can be legitimate is the wrong word, legitimate small L, but they can be a bigger company. And then the last level of funding, 49% larger, almost 50% more than if they didn't have a female on the executive level. So all of this being said, just kind of think, and you don't have to share unless you want to, you know, think about your thoughts, your aspirations, dreams for a more equitable and diverse and inclusive workplace. Some of mine have been kind of fulfilled, like I said, coming to Rocket Homes. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work for a great company that has done it and been on the front end of being equitable and diverse and inclusive. Another dream that I have is that, again, fighting for my daughter, that she gets the opportunity to, if she does want to be a coder when she grows up, being pushed to do it in school, besides just having mom push her, given the opportunities, not put down and said, oh, well, boys are better, or this other person is better than you, don't worry about it. And then just for her to get the schooling and then get the job, right? Just those little things. So just kind of keep those in mind as you go forward and think about it. And if there's something that you can do, try it. You know, open up a seat at the table, let somebody else in. And this is from Andres Tapia, and they're a global diversity and inclusion strategist and thought leader at Korn Ferry, which is a management consultant company. And I thought this was really, really great bit here. And it's diversity is the mix. Inclusion is making the mix work. And with that, I want to say thank you and apologize that I still have an old logo in there. But here is my contact information. I'm on Twitter at the QA Diva or the.qa.diva.1@gmail.com. I'm always open to talking about testing, talking about diversity, talking about soft skills, or just talking in a space where we don't get to see each other very often. One, thank you all for having your cameras on and letting me see your faces. It's nice to be able to see people and to kind of interact. If you ever want to interact or have somebody to talk to, please feel free. I'm a chatterbox. So I don't mind talking at all. So if anybody has any questions, any comments, anything you want to talk about, we've got a couple minutes left, please. I'm gonna open the door to you guys. You folks, sorry. I'm still.
I would ask just a quick question. If there's any resources that you could recommend for like us, for our daughter. So my daughter is very, very good in the STEM related fields and as far as a student. And I'm continuing looking for opportunities for ways for her to get involved. Like, I want to swing her toward computer science, but she's like, oh, I don't think I want to be on a computer all day. And I was like, newsflash, most of the jobs you get into, you're going to be on a computer all day. But so I'm just wondering about resources and which places that I could direct her.
Yeah, there are. What's funny is that my daughter all got started with, it was a simple little coding game on the iPad, and it was something that her father had bought her. It was a Harry Potter wand, and you could like wave it at the iPad, but you could code it to do certain things. Okay. So I always go for more things that are like games, because that seems to get not just girls, but kids in general just kind of understand what coding is. And plus I know that I've been trying to get my kids off of screens, but for stuff like this, it's like, I'm going to push you to get on a screen for a little while. Little things like that. I'm trying to think of, there's Code Academy, there's, oh goodness, I can't remember. Scratch from MIT is the one that my daughter uses all the time, and she can tell you the ups, downs, and inside outs of that whole thing. And it's like little puzzle pieces. You put little puzzle pieces together. So it's not only just a game to build, but then the puzzle pieces make the characters on the screen do things. Okay. Like they'll talk to each other, or they'll dance, or a little butterfly will fly by, something like that. If there's a local group, like a lot of the time here in Kansas City, we have women in tech groups, but our women in tech groups also do things called like coding and cupcakes, which is a really great thing to bring your kids to. They open it up. It doesn't have to be girls. It can be girls, boys, and everything. Okay, and John, Scratch, Google Hour of Code. Yes, that's another great one. Khan Academy. Some are free, some have subscriptions. Girls Who Code is another one, if you're looking for specifically girls level stuff. Again, some of the toys that are out there, there's so many toys now. There's a little, I saw a little robot the other day that you could use your iPad to code, and it'll like go around and do stuff and follow. So yeah, just maybe to push her into it, make it a fun game.
Sounds good, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Osmo. Thank you, John. It's Osmo. He's like this little robot. I think there's even one like for BB-8.
There's a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a BB-8. Sphero is the other one. So the robot is Sphero. Osmo is like an add-on to an iPad or an Android tablet that you have like a little attachment that goes on. I'm sorry, I'm not on camera, guys. I'm in a different machine that I don't have a camera on. But you can like aim the camera down basically, and it watches what you're drawing and what you're doing. And there's various, the other one, which actually takes you out of technology now that I'm thinking about it, Robot Turtles. I think it's Robot Turtles is a board game that teaches programming concepts like bug detection, which I think is valid here. And we've used that. I have two kids as well, son and a daughter. And we use that, Laser Maze and Gravity Maze, because it's engaging in the tactile function of solving problems. And it is then kind of applicable to coding principles down the road when you get there. But Robot Turtles is a great one. I think it's even aged like 4 and up, because there's various obstacles you can introduce to make the game harder over time. So just some ideas for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of incredible. I've seen like the change happen. Not only does my daughter have the Harry Potter wand, she's got the Jedi disc. That's again just like that, plugs in the iPad, and she's programmed it to where when she waves her hand over it, you see the Jedi on the screen like use the lightsaber and just kind of cut through. It's really, really neat. And it's simple and fun. She has a good time with it because it's like putting puzzle pieces together.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we are right at time here, and I know probably a lot of people have other meetings and things to get off to, but I do want to say, Amanda, I really, really appreciate you taking the time today to share this with us, and you know, definitely learned some new terminology. I had never heard of, what is it, programmers? Is that?
Programmers.
I never heard that term before. So just want to say thank you, and from everyone here at the Lansing Area Software Testers, thanks again for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you for everything. Teresa, thanks for inviting me. Like I said, I'm happy to.
We will see everyone next month. Thanks for coming today.